All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow, and remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest for you. A couple of words about my guest. Uneasiness, self-destruction, triumph, entrepreneur, author, all the way from New Orleans. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Miss Jasmin Pierre. How are you, ma'am?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right. I want to talk about something very important, especially now during these times, mental health. And you have quite an interesting story. I want to dive right into it if you don't mind. Okay. So at 20 years old, you were diagnosed with a major depressive disorder. Up until that time of your diagnosis, can you just give us somewhat of a hint of what life was like for you up until that time you were diagnosed?
You know, I think you are the first person to ask me this question, post 2020. Mm-hmm. And I say that because when people asked me before, my answer was so much different. But a lot of stuff happened in 2020, not just, with the world, but like even with my mental health, that just made me realize where a lot of the depression came from. Mm-hmm. So I was molested by my brother at a young age. Mm-hmm. And I never really dealt with that. And I never got help for it. And, it's a topic that's very hushed, especially in Black communities. Like we really just we don't talk about mental health, and we don't talk about molestation, especially when it's like within the family. So I kept that in for a long time. And my dad died of lung cancer in 2019. And when a family member dies, secrets and stuff come out sometimes, and the way family acts sometimes, it was a lot going on, and it just made me have to come to terms with a lot of things. I finally realized I didn't have to deal with my brother anymore. The only reason I ever still dealt with him is because my dad was alive, and he never knew. My mom moved me and my family from New Orleans to Louisville, Kentucky, when I was about 6 years old. So we lived in two different states, and my dad never knew what was going on, but my mom did. But she acts like she didn't know. And we had a kind of a confrontation about it last year because, finally everything had came out and my dad had died. And I wanted her to understand why my mental health hasn't been what it's been over the years. And I wanted her to know that she needed to be held accountable too, because she knew what was going on, even though she said she didn't know what was going on. And so that was a thing. And I ended up needing a lot of therapy in 2020 because you can just imagine there's a pandemic. There is all this stuff in the media about racial trauma and, the police and still shooting and killing Black people. It was a lot of stuff going on last year in the midst of everything. I'm still grieving my dad and dealing with my brother and what he did to me. He's older, so and he still has never admitted what he did to me. So I know that was a very long explanation.
Well, no, I mean that's your.
But that's the truth.
Yeah, but that's real. And no one, can say anything different. And pretty much, as you said, people need to be held accountable for actions that were, taking place that, they never spoke upon. So you sort of hinted on it a little bit, but, the type of, reaction that was from family, in reading some of your, bio, basically you were saying that, family was pretty much on some, take it to church and pray it away or, forget about it. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, I mean, personally speaking, if, something, that traumatic happened to me and the response is something of that nature, I would probably like have my own personal views towards, church or something else. So what was like for what was life like for you even after the response, even after the diagnosis and like family coming forth or what have you?
I feel like I was still getting some of the same responses, just pray more, go to church more. And I don't think any of those responses was because people didn't care or they didn't love me. It's generational. That is what they were taught to do. And, their parents and their parents' parents, it's like, that's what we were taught, is just to pray and be strong. So, and there was a time where I believed that too, that I was just supposed to pray and be strong. And I was so much more in the church and thinking like that was the only thing that was going to heal me, because that's what they say in the church too. Like, it's a demon and you just need to pray it away, read your Bible more. So it was just something that I was used to until I started to see that it wasn't working. I'm like, I keep doing what people are telling me to do, but this is not working. So something must not be right. And then, I realized that it even says in the Bible that faith without work is dead. So it's like, how do you expect people to just pray and not take any action towards getting better? And I think it's also because people in our community don't see mental illness as a real illness. So they don't see it as an issue to where you need to go get professional help. And that's another barrier right there. So yeah, I was diagnosed at 20, but I didn't really come to terms with it that I had major depressive disorder till I was 26.
Yeah. Okay. So, man, and as you said, you would come to grips with things like 6 years to come to grips with
really most of my life, because that's when I came to terms with it. But I knew something was off my entire life. I just thought I was crazy, because we're always told to just pray and just be strong. And it's just like, I kept trying and trying. I'm like, here I am, I'm 26. And it took a suicide attempt for me to realize, hey, this is not working. And I don't think it should get to that point to realize that you need help. That's in crisis mode right there. You want to get help before you are in crisis mode.
So let me just ask, like, in your opinion, why do you think mental health is so looked down upon in the Black community?
Let's think about the history of this country, the way we came here. I did a workshop a couple of years ago for the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Like they had their national conference here in New Orleans. And my topic was the shame of mental health issues in the Black community. And I touched on how, when our ancestors were on the plantation and all the horrors that they saw, I'm like, you had to realize they had mental health issues too, but if they showed those kind of signs, they were just beaten or told to get back to work. So it's like, it's been ingrained in us from the beginning that you just have to be strong, and they pushed the Bible on them on the plantation too. So it's just like, that's all we had is prayer and to be strong. So, and then you look at the generations after that. Even during the civil rights era, like some of the horrors that they experienced, and there was still like Martin Luther King. He wanted us to be nonviolent. And I am not saying that he wasn't a great leader. He was, but like, he was somebody who was so much in the church. It was always forgiveness and prayer and being strong. So it's just like, we were always expected not to, it's like Black people don't have feelings in this country. It's like, that's what they think. Black people don't have feelings in this country. And, if you keep seeing that generation after generation, that's what you're going to think. Like, okay, we just have to be strong. Like, oh, this is going on. Well, we've been through worse. I've heard this all the time. If our ancestors got through slavery, then we don't have anything to complain about. That's not true. How come white people are okay with going to therapy and it's seen as something normal, but we can't have that? It makes no sense to me. I mean, looking at it now, I'm just like, we shouldn't have to think like that because we're human too. We have emotions just like everybody else.
Right. Well, no, and I totally agree with everything you're saying. And, it's like a shame, like even now in this day and age, we're just now coming around to the, grips of, hey, you know what? This might work. I'm not sure. Let's just try it out when it's been there the whole time, but it's been shamed, upon others in the community because of, what we don't know. And sometimes, what we don't know, we're scared of. So, man, that's
scared. I think that was a great word to say. I think a lot of us fear mental health, and I mean, just from talking to other people in my community, from what I do and like hearing stories, it's like it's a lot of fear and shame associated with mental illness in our community. It's like if somebody had, like, I can say because my uncle had PTSD. He was in the Vietnam War, and I saw like how he was treated, not just by people in society, but also just people in my family. And it's like a shame or something. So it's like, who wants to say I deal with mental illness in the Black community if it's just going to be like you're looked down upon in society and within your own family? I'm like, it's worse with us because mental illness is already seen as stigmatizing in society as a whole, no matter what color you are. But it's like, if you are Black and you have a mental illness, you're not just getting it from the world, you're also getting it from your family too, because they're telling you there's nothing wrong with you. And it's not even for Black people to begin with. They're telling you that too.
That is real. That is real. Man, those are real words. Okay. All right. So, man, shifting gears just a little bit, I want to talk about some of the stuff that you do. Okay. Now, man, you are a certified peer support specialist, mental health advocate, and a speaker. You are a mental health speaker as well, and a author of a book called A Fight Worth Finishing. Let's talk about this book. So tell us a little bit more about A Fight Worth Finishing.
Yeah, so that is pretty much the story of, well, when I told you that I was 26 and that's when I came to terms with my illness, that is when I end up in the intensive care unit at that time because I majorly overdosed. And that is what inspired me to write the story. It is I talk about my time in there and what it's like to be in a facility. And Louisiana is ranked 45th in the nation when it comes to mental health care services. So I felt like I was in jail instead of getting services that I needed. There were nurses that were rude to me. Security came up to my room and, basically told me, you have to come to this facility. You don't have no choice. Like I was a criminal or something. It was very dehumanizing, being suicidal and needing to get help in this system, because I feel like when you go in for mental health issues in the ER, they treat you completely different if other than if you had a broken arm or if you had the flu or something. And I know that because I've been in the ER for different reasons throughout my life, and I know how I was treated for other situations. And I saw how I was treated when I came in there and I was a suicidal patient and I needed my stomach pumped because I had taken too much medicine, and how they treated me and, badgering questions at me, even though I'm pretty much out of my mind. I need help. And they're just, why would you do something like this? And how much medicine did you take? And I'm like, hey, I need medical attention right now. I didn't even answer her questions because one, I need medical attention.
Right.
And you're yelling at me and making me feel like I'm a bad person when I really just need help.
Right.
And I'm not saying all the healthcare workers were like that, because there's good and bad everywhere. So there were people that still treated me like a human, but for the most part, I still feel like to this day, because I do have major depressive disorder, and people I think people in our community still think that if you pray hard enough that it's just gonna go away, and that's not really how it works. I'm probably gonna have to manage this the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And there are still times where I feel suicidal and I'm like, I still do not want to go to the ER. I still don't feel like I'm gonna be treated like a human. I feel like I'm gonna be treated like a criminal. And I think that's a really horrible thing to have to deal with. So I put that in my book for that reason. I wanted people to see the horror side of the mental health field, because there are horror stories and there are ways that they treat us. So I talked a lot about that, and I talked a lot about how ashamed I felt about what I was going through. But I was also very tired at that point. And I told myself, you know what? I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. I'm going to come to terms with that I have this illness, and I'm going to try to get help somehow, because this is not what it is. And I felt like I was drowning and I was tired. So that is pretty much where my advocacy started. And actually that's in my book too. Like when I started with a video. I started with a YouTube video. And I just wanted to tell people that I have depression and how I felt about it. And that was a very hard video to make, because I posted it on social media and I was like, I didn't know how people were going to
take it,
respond or judge me. But I just wanted to do it because I wanted to feel free. And I also wanted to help other people, because I'm like, I know I could not be the only one who was feeling this way. And I know somebody else needed to hear it. And it took off from there. It was really just supposed to be a YouTube video. And I was like, I was going to be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I started getting so many responses of like, you know, I go through this too. And I talk about this in the book, and it was just like, man, this is really a serious issue. Mm-hmm. So I started to learn more about my illness. And I'm saying all this because it's all in the book and everything. And I just wanted like the readers to like see my journey into like understanding that I have an illness, but also seeing that I understand that this issue is so important in society that I felt like I wanted to talk about it more. So, you know, I started talking about it more. Like I never saw myself like creating an app and everything. Like all that came afterwards.
Right.
But like at that point in the book, I was just wanting to get the word out and trying to not be so embarrassed about what I was going through.
So if people want to get the book, where can they get the book?
They can get it on Amazon.
Amazon? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So now you just talked about something that I'm about to talk about. You have an app. You have an app called The Safe Space. All right. And it's doing really big things in the mental health community. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because it's just not a regular app. So talk a little bit more about The Safe Space.
It's the safe place.
I'm sorry, The Safe Place.
It's okay. People do that sometimes too. And I'm like, I tell them, because if you put that in the app store, it's not going to come up. So it's The Safe Place.
The Safe Place. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
It is okay. But The Safe Place is unique because it is an app that is specifically geared towards the Black community and mental health issues that we go through in our community. And I felt like that was so important because of just growing up and hearing certain things, not just in my family, but from, you know, other Black people, just having friends or hearing stuff from in school. Is just like, I always heard that we have to be strong all the time and we have to pray. And one of my favorite shows back in the day was Girlfriends.
Okay.
And yeah, there was an episode where the main character, Joan, she wanted to go to therapy, and like all her friends were like, girl, we're Black. We don't do that. We go to church. What's wrong with you? And I think about that because like at that time, I thought that joke was so funny. But like looking now, I'm like,
that's so real.
it's real. It's like we really do think like this. It's like I even bring up that episode of Girlfriends when I speak at conferences, because I'm like, even though it was a funny joke, like it's so real. Like we really do feel this way, and we have to break that stigma. So I thought having a Safe Place app would be important, because it could be a place where we could get information about what we're going through and not have to feel judged, and also having a culturally competent resource, because we don't really have that. And I know that psychology is so westernized, and it is very geared towards the white community. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's what it's more geared towards. I've gone to conferences where I've talking to doctors who don't know that much about racial trauma and generational trauma and how it affects the Black community, all of the stuff that we've seen throughout history and how that affects our mental health. Like, a lot of them do not know about this stuff. And I'm like, I'm just an advocate. I'm just somebody I have experiences. So I'm just talking about my experiences, and even doctors are getting something from this. So I'm like, when that started happening, I'm like, okay, this app really is important. We need this because we need healthcare to change. We need the healthcare system to be more culturally competent. And it's not even just going into mental health. The Black community has been very abused throughout history with healthcare. And I think that is another huge reason why we don't want to go to a therapist, because they're like, this is something that I actually hear all the time. I'm like, how is somebody white going to tell me about my experiences? I hear this all the time. And it's actually a problem, because there aren't as many Black therapists and psychologists, because we aren't conditioned to feel like it's a problem in society. So that's another reason I feel like the app is important, because it gets people aware that, hey, there are Black therapists that exist. We do need more, but like, hey, there are resources. There are people out here in our community that get it. So the more education we have, the better chance we have of this healthcare system being better for the next generations to come. So that is why I created the Safe Place app, and that is why I talk about it so much, even though I feel like other communities haven't caught on to the fact that it's not racist, because some people have thought it was, racist because it's geared towards Black people. And
well, in the end, who's to say that we can't have our own? So
exactly. But I was
I never understood that.
Yeah, that's a problem within itself too, because I'm like, it's created in the first place. It was created in the first place because we don't have the resources that we need. So if we don't have the resources that we need, it's needed, right? So what's racist about that? And I've had to explain to some people, I'm like, no, it's not about being racist. It's about equality.
Right.
It's like, when it comes all down to it, it's about equality, because when they learn about this stuff, it's just going to make the healthcare system better. They need to know this.
Well, also at the same time, you want to go to someone that you trust, and someone you feel that understands, what it is that you go through. And just to dive in a little bit to psychology, if you just look back through history, there are no real Black psychologists. There are plenty of Black socialists, who have come up with terms, but they don't file that under psychology. That's filed under sociology. So, for whatever reason, I don't even want to get into all that, but I feel as, what you're doing is very beneficial for the community, and it's something that's most needed, especially now, as we said before, with COVID, with people having anxiety, with people losing jobs, loved ones, everything going on. The time is now. So the Safe Place, ladies and gentlemen. So now you can get this app on Android and iPhone as well?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, all right, there you go. Android people, don't be mad. iPhone people, you got everything under the sun. So
right, I got you both covered. I love all
all right. Okay, all right. So if people wanted to get in contact with you, how can people get in contact with you?
If they download the Safe Place app, our contact information is actually, there's a section in there where you can either email me or you can reach my website, or you can also, I answer my DMs on the Safe Places social media pages. So I do get people to ask me questions and stuff through there, but email is the best. I answer both, but I answer email faster, just to let people know.
All right. She's still about that business, y'all. So you got to hit her with the email. All right. Okay. So now, Ms. Jasmin Pierre, this brings us to our last question, the question my show's known for, so I have to ask. What is the one word that best describes you and why?
Determined. And I would say determined because I've been at this for a while. I started when I was 26, like a few months right after the hospital, and I'm 32 now. So I've been doing this for a little while, and it's not easy talking about mental health. It's not easy. I feel like it's not easy for anybody to talk about it, but like even more so being Black talking about mental health issues, because I got looks before in like, why is she talking about this? Why is this important? But as time went on, people see I do this for a reason, and that it's a very serious issue in society. And my drive and my determination behind what I do comes from knowing that I don't want any of the generations that come after me to have to deal with what I deal with, in the terms of not being okay to talk about the issues and not being able to receive the proper help for it. So I am so determined because I just want to see the mental health care field be a better system as a whole. And I feel like somebody has to be determined to do that, because we are still too far behind. And we're only here for a short while on this earth, and I just want to make sure while I'm here that I make a difference. So I'm determined.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'm gonna put a word in. Student of life. Learn as you go. And everything that you learn, you also have to apply at some point, because as students, we do have to apply the lessons that we've learned in life. You are applying those lessons by giving back and, being an advocate for those, who, walk in the same, they walk in the same lane, they walk those same shoes. I'm here for you, man. I know what you're going through. I provided this for you. I provided that for you, because I know sometimes going into these facilities, we always don't get the equality that we deserve.
Exactly.
So student, there you go. All right. Enough said. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Ty Brownlow. This has been Word with Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can follow me on all social media outlets at Word with Ty Brownlow, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, as well as my website, as well as my website, wordwithtybrownlow.com. I'm sorry, tybrownlow.com. You can get this interview plus other great interviews as well. Ms. Jasmin Pierre, I really thank you for being my guest today, and I wish you well on your journey.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this interview.
Thank you.